Hi there guys, my name is Tom Kendall Fitness, and the sad reality is that many young men in today's society are suffering just like you from symptoms of depression and anxiety. And yeah, I guess you can say if you have those symptoms then you do have the medical condition of depression and anxiety. So I did try to find some statistics for this, and the general consensus is that around 12% of men are suffering from symptoms of depression and anxiety, and 6% of women. So it's clearly a much bigger problem for men. That's not to diminish the issue for women. Still a big problem there, but obviously it's twofold for men. And if you look at the suicide rates over the last 40 years, the ratio of men to women, it's gone up 12% for men, and obviously down 12% for women. So there are less women per 100,000 people committing suicide now than there were 40 years ago. However, these statistics for depression and anxiety, I do not believe that they're that accurate. And the reason for that is because one of the main symptoms of depression and anxiety is that negative thoughts and feelings are going to prevent you from completing everyday tasks. This is one of the biggest indicators, and an everyday task is something like, brushing your teeth or having a shower, which I can attest to. When I was going through my worst period, which was a couple of months ago now, I've been doing really well, getting back into doing exercise, eating healthily, which I'm going to teach you to do in kind of the third part of this little series I'm doing. But if a young man is so depressed that he can't even find the energy to brush his teeth every day and have a shower, where is he going to get the energy to tell someone that he's experiencing these negative thoughts? Where is he going to find the energy to ask for help? Now, you could say, oh, if you're depressed or anxious, why don't you just tell your parents? And you should. This is really important. You should speak to your family as a young man or a teenager. You should let them know immediately. I understand this is quite difficult to do in certain households, but it is very important. I'm very lucky to have grown up in a household where I can basically tell my parents anything. There's not really anything that they don't know about me. But not everybody has this luxury, and for some people it's far less likely that they're going to be able to speak to their parents about this kind of thing. So I'm going to use an example here of an Adam Sandler movie called Blended. This might seem a bit like cheesy, a bit corny, but at the beginning of this movie, I think I've got the right film, it might not be, but I think his wife has died or something, or they've just separated. I can't really remember. But at the beginning of the movie, his daughter asks him to get her some tampons when he goes to the shop. And in the film, he kind of goes there and he doesn't know which ones to get, because that's something that the mother used to do. That's nothing that he's had to deal with before. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that there are certain issues that girls are going to have that they can speak to their mom about, and there are certain issues that boys are going to have that they need to speak to their dad about to get that kind of understanding, that kind of reciprocity. I think that's the term. Men have problems that only other men can relate to. Now, one thing I would say is it's always good to talk to your friends about this kind of thing. However, it is important that you have someone mature that you can speak to. I think when you joke too much about these things with your mates, which is really important, it is really important that you can have a joke about these things. But if you don't then have someone that you really trust, so a really good friend or your dad or someone else in your family, these things will just get pushed down and down, made fun of, made a joke of. One day it will catch up to you. However, not every young man or boy in this country has a father that is always available to speak to. So I did a bit of research on this. Very easy to find these statistics. They're all publicly available on the UK government website. So it is estimated that in 2021 there were approximately 2.3 million separated families in Great Britain, of which in these families there were 3.6 million children, which is under 18s. And for reference, the UK under 18 population is 14 million. Also, in 2021, there were 3 million single parent families. I couldn't find any details for the specific number of under 18s, but I used the average kind of UK family, so that the average UK family has 1.7 children, so I did 3 times 1.7 to get like an estimation, which would come to 5.1 million children living in single parent households, which is where, so there's a separated family where the parents are separated but the child has like split custody between the mom and the dad, or you know but a single parent family is where the father or mother, I guess the mother wouldn't really be unknown, but where the father is unknown, or obviously someone has passed away. So when you add these percentages together, and I also factored in that 90% of majority custody goes to the mother and 90% of these single parents are women, you get that 55.8% of children in the UK, and we can assume that it's 55.8% of boys because it's 50-50, as we know if we listened in biology. 55.8% of boys in this country, so if we're generous with these stats, 1 in 2 young men or boys are spending most of their time living in a household that is lacking a male role model. So as we can see, 1 in 2 young men do not always have their father around to speak to about these things and ask for advice. And obviously you can say, well, why can't they just speak to them when they see their dad? Well, when I have something that I want to speak to my dad about, it usually takes me like 3 or 4 days to kind of build up the courage to say to him. I'd say probably 3 or 4 days. A lot of people that I know that have separated parents, they see their dad like every other weekend. Obviously not now because we're older now, but it was either like every other weekend or it was like first weekend of the month. Some of them were 50-50, not many though. So if you're only seeing your dad every other weekend and it takes you on average 4 times of seeing your dad to speak to him about a problem, that's going to be 2 or 3 months before you build up the courage to speak about that problem. So that's going to be building up inside this young man for 2 or 3 months, and it might get to the point, I mean, how many more problems is this kid going to amass over those 2 or 3 months? And how many of these problems is he going to forget about and just push them down inside of him? You could say, well, if they can't talk to their dad, why can't they talk to their teachers at school? Which you can. You should speak to your teachers at school. That's what they're there for. And there are teachers at every school with this kind of safeguarding training. But a study was done in 2021 and 2022 which showed that 75% of teachers in UK schools were found to be female. So you say, well, 1 in 4 at least of this young man's teachers he can go and speak to. So if a lad has 10 teachers in 1 year, 2 to 3 of them are going to be male. And of those 2 or 3, they're all going to be in different departments of the school, of which are going to be majorly female dominated. So, do you really think these blokes that are hanging out with women all day, every day at work are going to be displaying many masculine qualities? Now again, I was very lucky that at my school I had lots of really good male teachers, you know, and that there was, I spoke to a couple of them on different occasions where I was feeling down. You know, I had some really good male role models at the particular school that I was at, but again, this is not going to be the case at a lot of schools. And again, you have to build up the courage to speak to that person. And then outside of, you know, your friends, your family, school teachers, I guess there's kind of like sports coaches, if you do sports. I think you find a lot of guys that are suffering from depression and anxiety don't actually do any sports. Again, I was lucky that I had some very good male role models. My martial arts classes, my tennis classes, my swimming classes, because my parents made me do those things because they knew what was good for me. But some people don't do sports, and some people are not going to have the courage to, there was many times that I spoke to my martial arts instructors about issues that I was having at school, and they'd give me advice about stuff. Some people, a lot of young men, just don't have that output. So if I had all of these male role models and still ended up feeling depressed, what is going wrong here? There must be other external factors, which there were. There were certain things that led up to, me feeling depressed and anxious. But the external factors that I'm talking about here, that even if all of these things, not having a male role model in your life, at home, at school, outside of school, if all of these things don't affect you, which is very unlikely, what are the external factors? First of all, traditional masculine qualities are vilified in the media every single day. Feminists can argue this all they want. It's true. The Marvel movies, the biggest franchise in the world, that have made the most money of any franchise ever. All of the top male superheroes in that franchise have either been emasculated or killed off and replaced by female counterparts. There are no strong male role models on the big screen anymore. Luke Skywalker emasculated, Han Solo killed. Superman, Batman, forget about it. You got Supergirl and Batwoman now. They don't want you to have strong male role models in this weird kind of Western society that we are now living in. So traditional masculine qualities are being vilified in the media. What do most of modern young men do for most of the day? They're on their phones, they're consuming media. Another thing, men should cry more. Now, this is a bit of a controversial topic. It is okay to cry. It's, there's many times that I've cried in front of my parents, probably at school. It's not a bad thing to cry. It's just this kind of, the thing that makes us traditionally masculine is being able to control our emotions. It's okay to cry if you get a football in the face, or you get, kicked, or sometimes those things really hurt. It's difficult not to cry. I mean, it's almost impossible. Obviously if a family member dies, then it's okay to cry. But there's certain situations, especially as you begin to mature, as you leave school and start to have to become more independent, where you just need to start to take more control over your emotions. It's not men should cry more that is the issue. It's not teaching men to be able to control their emotions. What this men should cry more, like telling young boys that it's okay to cry, what this is having kind of the adverse effect is that it's removing the ability to control your emotions. Because as much as when I was in primary school, I probably cried every other week. A lot of my friends will tell you that. But I would try my absolute hardest not to. I was actively trying to control my emotions because I knew I was a boy, I was a lad. I wasn't supposed to be crying, so, hold it in for as long as possible and then cry. But now boys are being told that they're allowed to cry, that it's okay to cry. Because, especially for these young men that are living in these female-dominated households, they're crying all the time and complaining about how difficult life is, whereas most fathers would give their sons a kick up the arse and saying, as much as they'd probably wrap it up a bit nicer, they'd give the overall message that you need to stop being a pussy and that you need to go out and take on the world. Most mums who are naturally protective of their children, if you cry to your mum and say something like, "Oh, I don't want to do karate lessons anymore," all that she can do is stop you from going to karate. Whereas the male role model would say, no, you need to keep doing this to make you stronger so that you don't feel like this. Again, another thing, this whole being masculine is toxic, like this toxic masculinity thing. We're men, we're masculine. How can saying that masculinity is toxic is just saying that men are toxic and that all men are bad people? It's not right. And obviously the biggest example of this in the media today is the Tate brothers, which, whatever you think about them, they're kind of being used as the, you know, these guys are so toxically masculine, they're evil, you know, don't let your kids, your young boys watch this kind of stuff. You know, don't be like Tate. Why would you want to be rich? Why would you want to be a world championship kickboxer? And obviously the thing they always use is this whole sex trafficking thing, which, by the way, has still yet to be proved. But do you think they really care about the sex trafficking? Like, be real, if all these journalists and feminists and advocates and whatever really cared about the sex trafficking, if that was the main focus, that was the main problem, I think Epstein would have been caught a lot earlier. Yeah, think about that one. They don't care about that. What they care about is so many men looking up to this guy who is a world champion kickboxer, who's rich, who's telling young guys that they need to work hard to achieve their dreams. I mean, heading the ball is being taken out of football for under 18s or whatever. They're making regular rugby banned in schools, like it's touch rugby that they're trying to, like, they're just, I mean, and don't even get me started on the education system. Like, from nursery all the way through primary school, you're told to sit quietly and cross your legs. And obviously all lads will know about this when, you know, you and your mates get separated in class for talking, but the girls never get separated for talking. Well, the thing about this, men together are strong. They're clever. They can come up with ideas to do things, and authority. So authority in this sense is the teachers. Feel threatened by that. But I've personally had enough of this. I think a lot of blokes have had enough of this. So I think it's time that we rise up. I think it's time that we take back what's ours, our birthrights. I think it's time that we take back our masculinity. This has been Tom Kendall Fitness. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it's impossible for me at this point to get cancelled because I've only got 4 subscribers. But make sure you watch out for the following 2 videos in this series on everyday things that will kind of strip you of your masculinity, and then the third part will be things you can do to kind of pull yourself out of that depressive rut. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you know anyone else that would enjoy this video, please share it to them. I'm doing the same as a lot of guys my age on YouTube at the moment, trying to spread a good message to young men, trying to help young men out in a society that is ultimately against them. Please leave a like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.